Hello and welcome once again to Let's Start Cooking. I'm Wayne, and today we're going to do a braised beef short rib. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to make sure that we have everything that we need, and all the ingredients are going to be in the description. And we just got regular bone-in short ribs. You can use boneless, but you're going to get a much better flavor if you use the bone-in. And you want to make sure that you get one with a nice marble, nice red. And I have, for this recipe, I have 8. Now, depending on the size of your short rib, you could use 16, whatever. I'm doubling this recipe, so you can always cut it in half if you only want to make 8 of these. So we'll take these and we're going to put these to the side for now. And we're going to start with our carrots. And I'm using 6 carrots. And we're just going to take them, I'm going to lay them to the side. And we're just going to chop these up. Now again, we don't have to be super nuts with them, but I'm going to cut them in half to make it a little bit easier for me. And I like to put a flat side on them. That way I don't have to worry about them rolling, and I don't want to catch my finger. And for the smaller ones that aren't that wide, we're just going to cut them in pieces. And again, you don't have to get really nuts. You just don't want really, really big pieces, that's all. For these, I'll cut these in half again. And that's what we're going to do with them. We're going to cut all them up. And for our onion, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to dice our onions up. And I'm using 1 medium and 1 small. You can use a large onion. All depends on what you have available. If you have a large onion, you can. But again, you don't want to go really, really small with these. We're just going to dice these up. And we'll get these all diced up, and once we get these diced up, we're going to take these, and we're going to take an oven-safe pot. I'm using a Dutch oven. And we're going to cook these in our pot. So we're going to get all this chopped up, and then we'll be right back. Once we get all our carrots and our onions, we have them all chopped up. What we want to do is we're going to take our oven-safe pot. Now I'm using a Dutch oven. And we're just going to take the lid off because we don't need the lid right now. And we're just going to take about 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And we just want to put it in the bottom of the pan. Now again, you might need a little bit more depending on if you double this recipe or not. And we're just going to take our carrots and our onions, and we're just going to put it right into our pot. And we're going to cook these for a couple of minutes. You'll know because you're going to start to smell them. And when you start to smell the onion, we're not trying to cook these through. We're not trying to cook them till they're transparent. We just want to get them nice and warmed up. Because these are going to go in an oven. All this that we have is going to go in an oven for about 2 hours. So we just want to get a nice cook on these. I'm going to cook these for a couple of minutes. Once we get these cooked, like I said, we're not cooking them through. We're just trying to get them heated up and want that flavor and the smell to come through. And once we get that to that point, we're going to take these out. And we're going to put them back in our dish. Because what we want to do is we want to actually save these now. And we're going to prepare our short ribs. So we want to get all this out. And then we'll get our pan ready again. Okay. Take our carrots and our onions and we take them off out of the pot. We're going to set that to the side, and we're just going to salt and pepper to taste all our short ribs before we do anything else with them. I'm going to make sure that we do both sides. And again, this is for your own taste. You can do this as heavy or as light as you want, but we just want to get everything covered the best we can. We're just going to get all these done. And once we get all these covered with salt and pepper, we're going to take these and we're going to put a little bit light coating of flour on them. Now, we're not going to go nuts. It's not like we're trying to coat these completely. We just want to put a little light coating on them before we put them back in our oil. And we're just going to take that, just like that. Nothing major. Just a light little coating. So now we get them all coated. We're just going to add a little bit more olive oil, a couple tablespoons. We're gonna let that heat up. We're gonna wanna brown all 4 sides of our short ribs. And all we wanna do is just gonna put them in. We're only gonna do this about 45 seconds on each side, that's all. Just to get a nice brown on them. Because after we do that, we're gonna take them back out. And then we're gonna finish using our Dutch oven before we put everything back together. So we'll get these all nice and brown on each 4 sides. And that's why I said, again, you wanna use a bone-in when it comes to short ribs. You wanna use a bone-in. You can use boneless. I know for the price, you can even use, if you want, you can get a chuck roast and cut that into strips if you want to use that instead. But all we're going to do is just going to slowly brown them. And we don't want to scrape this pan out, and we don't want to take anything out of the bottom of this pan because that's going to give us our flavor. When we get everything done and browned, when we start adding stuff back into this pan, we want everything to stay there. Once we get these all browned, we're just gonna take them off. And like I said, we're not trying to cook these through. We're just trying to get the sides browned. And obviously you can't brown the bone side. What we're gonna do is just gonna take these off the pan. Once we have them off the pan, what we're going to do, we're going to turn our heat up just a little bit. And we're going to take our red wine, and we're going to do what's now known as deglazing the pan. We're just going to take this in, and that's why I said don't scrape any of the stuff off the bottom because we want all that. Now we're going to cook that, and we're going to let this cook for a couple of minutes, and we're going to get all this stuff off the bottom of this pan. And you don't have to rub real hard. It'll come off as this heats up. And we're just gonna rub this right off. And once we get all this cleaned up off the bottom, then we're gonna add in our beef broth, and then we're gonna add in our tomato paste, and we're gonna let that cook for a couple of minutes before we do anything else. And as this, we're gonna let this heat back up to a boil. And as this boils, we're gonna make sure that we scrape the bottom of this pan, and we just wanna get all this stuff off the bottom because that's gonna add to the taste. And this is the time you're gonna wanna preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And we're gonna get all this off the bottom. We're gonna let this come to a boil. We're gonna let this cook for a couple of minutes. Basically what we wanna do whenever you're cooking with alcohol, whether it be a wine, whether a beer, whatever you decide to cook with, you're not actually cooking for the alcohol. You're cooking for the flavor. So we wanna cook the alcohol off of this wine. And once we get it this far, and we've left this cook for a couple of minutes, we're gonna then add our beef broth. And we're just gonna add this right in. And we're gonna let this come back up to a boil before we do anything else. It's just now getting ready to start to boil. You can see it's just starting. So at this time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our tomato paste. And we're just gonna add this right in, and just be careful that you don't get splashed up on it. We're just gonna add this right in. We're just going to mix that in. And once we get this all mixed in, this is the time that we're going to add everything back in. We're going to put our carrots, we're going to put our onions, we're going to put our short ribs back in here, and we're going to add 4 sprigs of thyme and 2 sprigs or 4, depending on the size. I have pretty big size sprigs of rosemary, so I don't want to use too many of them because rosemary is pretty strong. So I'm going to use 2 sprigs of rosemary. And we're going to take our onions and our carrots. We're going to slowly add them back in. Just give them a quick mix. And this is when we're gonna add in our short ribs again. We're just gonna take these, we're just gonna put them right back in. This is where you gotta be a little bit careful, make sure that you have a pot that's big enough to hold everything that you're gonna try to put in here. And I might even run into a problem. Okay, we'll get this last one in here. And like I said, this is why I said just be careful, because I have about an inch and a half left. That's why I'm using a Dutch oven, because the lid's heavy enough. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this now, and we're gonna cover all this that we just did. Oh, I almost forgot, just what I just told you guys. We wanna add in our rosemary. And like I said, these are pretty big size, but we're just gonna add them right in. We're gonna add in our sprigs of thyme. Whole sprigs, we don't have to break them up. We're just gonna put the lid on this. We're gonna take it off the heat here. And we're gonna put this in the oven at 350 degrees for 2 hours. And then we'll check it after that. So we'll get this in the oven and we'll be right back. We've had this in the oven for 2 hours at 350 degrees. And all we're gonna do now is we're gonna check on it. Stand back, and as you can see, we're not gonna touch anything in this. We're just gonna leave it go, and we're gonna turn the temperature down to 325 degrees, and we're gonna put this back in the oven, and we're gonna let this go again for another 35 to 40 minutes. After that, we're gonna take it out of the oven, and we're just gonna let it sit for 20 minutes. So we'll get this back in the oven, turn our temperature down, and we'll see you in about a half hour to 40 minutes. All right, we've had this in the oven. First time we had it in for 2 hours, and then we took it out, we reduced the heat to 325, and then we put it back in the oven for another 35 to 40 minutes. We took it out now, and we've left this rest for 20 minutes. And once we take the lid off, what we do is we take out the rosemary, we take out the thyme, and any fat that accumulated on the top, you want to scoop that off. So all we do now is we took a nice plate and we put mashed potatoes on it. And you can serve this over mashed potatoes. You don't have to serve it over anything, or you can even serve it over rice. So what we do is we just take this out. We're just gonna take one of these out. We're just gonna put it right on top. And if you want, you gotta be careful when you come in here, because you are gonna have some of the thyme. You can just take some of that, and if you want, you can put that on top. And what I like to do is I like to take some of the broth out of here, and I like to put it in a pot with a little bit of cornstarch, and I like to thicken it up a little bit. Or you can use it just the way it is. I like it a little bit thicker. I like to just put a little bit right over the top. And as you can see, we're just gonna, it's nice and tender, probably hot. You don't even have to chew. It's so tender, it pulls apart. Like I said, it takes a little bit of patience, because it does take about 3 hours to do this, but you will greatly appreciate the time that you spend doing this. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you come back, like, share, and subscribe, and let us know how we're doing. And we will see you next week.